My name is Alyssa Ralston. I'm here with Eric Deffenbaugh, class of 2000. It's February 15th, 2024. We're at Nicholson Library at Linfield University in McMinnville, Oregon. So Eric, tell us about your Linfield experience.
Such a broad term.
I know.
Experience.
Leaving it wide open for you to tell your story.
You know, maybe it's fair to start with one word, which is transformative. You know, my Linfield experience started way before I actually turned up here. So my father, in his professional career, was an architect and did a lot of work here at Linfield. And I had the opportunity to work for him when I was in high school. So part of my job was to, in those days, take the blueprints and plans, which were all paper then, from Salem, where I'm from, and run them over here so that the folks at the then college could look at them and give input and that type of thing. So I would come over here and thought, man, what a cool place. It's just really beautiful. And I loved that the campus was vibrant, and I was always seeing people walking around, and everyone seemed very friendly, and the staff I interacted with were very friendly as well. And so I knew when it came time to look at colleges and apply, I thought, well, Linfield would be great because I wanted to be close to home. I knew I wanted to go to a smaller school. My personality is such that I felt like I would thrive in that type of environment versus something much larger. And so at the time, I was very interested in secondary education and knew that Linfield had a great program. There was a master's program at that point. And so decided to apply. And so I applied early decision, made all that application happen, and got a call just before Christmas, I think, in my senior year, that I had been accepted. And I actually never applied anywhere else. Didn't even send in another application. I only sent one. And so I was obviously accepted and made my deposit as soon as humanly possible. And the rest is history, I guess you'd say. In terms of my experience here, I was paired with a roommate who was also early decision. An extremely great experience, and we're still close friends to this day. Maybe don't talk as often as we should, but but yeah, just a really positive experience in that regard. I would say, the most transformative, impactful things that happened to me, or happened while I was at Linfield, were the classroom education and the well-rounded liberal arts program, I think, were really important to me, and I maybe appreciate that now more than I did when I was a student. But it was very nice that I was able to sort of realize that while I had been interested in secondary education, my actual interests lied in other places. And so I kind of made a transition from secondary education to psychology to Spanish, and then went completely on the other side and ended up with a computer science degree and a minor in math. And people make fun of me all the time because I am one of the few people, it seems like, that has a Bachelor of Arts in computer science. And people just go like, how do those things go together? And I'm like, actually they go together perfectly, because one of the very unique things about Linfield and liberal arts is that consulting and understanding how people put things together is something that goes really well with liberal arts, but is not traditionally taught when you think about computer science or management information systems or those types of things. So I think it's a perfect match. It's a match made in heaven. And I think the other thing that goes with that was my involvement with ASLC, then C, now U. And I had the opportunity to serve on the Linfield Activities Board as part of cabinet as the Student Center Director, and then my senior year as president. And it was like, I learned a lot in class, no doubt, but practical real world experience, especially as president, running our own nonprofit entity, was extremely eye-opening and a lot of responsibility. And it really set me up well for my career, where I wasn't afraid to just jump in, and felt like I had the skills very early on in my career, whereas others were trying to figure out, like, what is this professional world? I sort of felt like I had been in it for a while, right? Like, I was interacting with administrators, with the president, sitting in budget meetings. Like, these things were not foreign concepts to me. I also had an opportunity to be a suburb assistant in residence life when that program started, and I think that taught me some very valuable lessons too, which was, what is it like to confront people who you know socially and have a reputation in that regard with, but also have to be an authority figure, and what does that look like? How do you navigate that? So I think, to me, going back to the sort of transformative theme, like, there was so much more going on than just academics. And I guess I would maybe finish that off by saying, post-graduation, certainly in my early career, there was a lot of focus on career, but I was so appreciative to be able to keep in touch with so many people here, and had an opportunity to join the Alumni Council and served there for 6 years through various different challenges and trying to get that group more engaged and more focused. And then, of course, recently joined the Board of Trustees, which I'm actually extremely excited about. It had been actually a very long time goal, even going back to being a student, to one day be on the board. And so it's a little bit surreal, actually, for me to be on the board, and just super happy to be serving in that capacity now.
That's a very broad.
It's a very broad.
But that's awesome. That's
the experience never stops, right? Like, it keeps going.
Yeah.
And even to this day, like, I hope it continues for forever and ever.
So let's kind of back it up a little bit. Tell me a little bit about, you said you grew up in Salem. What was your childhood like? What made you want to study secondary education in the first place?
So yes, my father, I think I mentioned, was an architect. My mother was a school teacher, primarily elementary. And I had a lot of really great experiences with teachers as I was going through. And I think one of the things I learned about myself in high school was that I very much connect with people very quickly. And at the time, I think it was sort of that led me towards, I want to continue sort of helping people evolve. And so that's why I moved towards the secondary education thing, because I was involved in creating some peer mentorship programs, helping people through difficult times, difficult conversations. And those things were very new at the time, when people were sort of just starting to talk about and acknowledge, mental health challenges, and there started to be some support in the school systems, but it was never official support. It was always these separate, sort of unsanctioned peer mentorship type things.
So you came to Linfield. We talked about how you only applied to Linfield and that was it.
Yeah.
When you got onto campus, were there any professors or mentors or other, for lack of a better term, grown-ups that guided you through your tenure here and that you remember fondly?
Absolutely. I think, when I was a freshman, in those days we had a colloquium. I think it's called something different now. But it was essentially that sort of group of freshmen that met regularly together. And my advisor was Frank Bumpus, who was a psychology professor. And, he was just lovely. He was such a nice guy. And more than anything, I think demonstrated such a level of care. I guess there's a difference between showing up and looking like you're caring, but you can tell when someone genuinely cares about your success, and I felt that from him. One of the big reasons I remember him, not just as a professor, but as a mentor, is that my grandfather passed away the second week of my freshman year in a accident with a horse. And so I was not only upset about that, as you might imagine, but also very stressed because I knew I was going to have to leave. And second week, my freshman year, new environment, like all the things happening at that point in one's life. And he was just, again, so caring, he gave me so much confidence in that, it's going to be okay. All of this is going to be here when you get back, and we'll just deal with it. Like, we'll work with people. Like, this is not someplace where you're just going to get, we don't care, turn in your papers or else. It's we'll work with you. And that very much stuck with me in terms of people who went out of their way to make sure that things were going to be okay and good, and that I felt supported. In terms of later on a bit, there was a staffing change in the computer science department. The professor that had been there for a long time as the head of the department left and moved on, and with him leaving, Martin Duomo-Toneboa came in and took over that department about halfway through my time. And so we switched from very much a traditional computer science model, which is learning about how computers work, like the internals of processors and machine language and all of those types of things. And Martin very much came in and said, look, that's fine if you want to go on to graduate school in computer science, yeah, that's what you need to know. But he asked us, he's like, how many of you plan to do that? And not a person was like, yes, that's my plan. Maybe there was one or something. So he very much changed the department and just turned it around. And so we went to more focus on what does the industry need? What are you going to get a job doing when you leave in the computer field? One of the biggest sort of transformational things he did was to contact Oracle, and was able to get Oracle to bring in and give the college, either for free or for extremely reduced price, full Oracle enterprise licenses so that we could learn database on industry standard stuff that was happening. And so for us to be able to put that on our resumes and have that experience working with it was very transformational. And I think it was very much him that encouraged me to kind of follow that consulting path and follow the more business-oriented path rather than more the traditional computer science. So I very much appreciated that about him. And he is another person who just demonstrated such care for what his students were going to be doing. And he would always get upset with us because he's like, man, you guys, you have no idea what's coming for you out in the real world. So, you got to be on this. So he was great in that aspect. And then finally, I say perhaps maybe the most impactful person for last, and that's Jeff McKay, who was an extremely, I don't even know how to describe the impact. Epically transformational in the sense of presence, and I think probably from him I learned what real leadership looks like, and that leadership is not so much about. It's not even so much about making decisions, but it's about how you get people to understand your perspective and engage people in a collaborative decision-making process, and how to deal with tough things, how to step back from that. And also watched and very much got from him a sense of, practice what you preach. Like, as activities director at the time, I mean, we were there doing all the things, but he was right there with us. Late at night, when we were doing activities, he was there. We were backstage setting stuff up, he was there. Which, looking back on it, is super impressive, right? Like, he had small kids, a family. that kind of commitment is real commitment. And I'm happy to say that Jeff's one of the people I've kept in touch with, and consider myself really good friends with both him and his wife. And it's been great to have him, continue to be that, but also as, less more of a student relationship to a more of an adult relationship, and be able to return, in some cases, some of that to him, which is, I think, very cool.
Any other special friendships with peers that you made at Linfield that are top of mind for you?
The group of people that I hung out with quite a lot, included my roommate, and some other very close friends that I'm still in touch with. And, we definitely had formed some of the closest relationships that I think I've had to this day, and can still consider them some of my best friends. It's worth noting as well that I met my husband at Linfield, and we met on the first day of my freshman year. Although I was not out at the time, that's something that perhaps is another transformational thing that happened while I was here, in terms of the whole coming out process and feeling supported through that. But so I would say that definitely classifies as a super important relationship that I formed while I was here, and always felt safe in that space, and felt like I had a lot of really great resources for going through that whole process. And so, we, in December this past year, celebrated 26 years together. So that's very exciting, and it's amazing how all these things tie back together, right? All the way from making choices back, even pre-Linfield, how that impacts the rest of your life in so many ways, right? Professionally, personally, all those things go into just forming a well-rounded person, and so that's one of the reasons that being on the board is so exciting to me, right? Is that we're trying to set that up for the future for the students that are here and the students that are to come. And I think, I certainly don't mean to speak for the board, but I think one of the common themes I see is everyone being so concerned that whole person process is sort of being put at risk. And we all have felt it and understand it, and are very passionate about making sure that it persists for as long as humanly possible.
I like to ask our alums what a typical weeknight was, or a typical weekend on campus during your time here. What was that like? Were you studying? Was it parties? A combination of both?
I would say it's a combination. It was a combination of both. Just as in the real world, by the time Friday rolls around, it's nice to be able to just relax a little bit, and that took many forms. Sometimes it was having dinner and then just going to a movie or doing some sort of student activity. As I got more involved with student government and doing those types of things, it was attending those events and in many cases running them, and between that and residence life and all of those types of things, there was never a dull moment. So I never felt like I was sitting around doing nothing. But there was also plenty of time to, hang out with friends and attend parties and just socialize. I never ever felt bored. There was always something going on and always a social aspect happening. And I definitely appreciated that there were so many people on campus. Especially at that time, and maybe it's because I'm not here, but it feels like there were more of us maybe around consistently then than there is now. Living very close to campus and being here almost constantly. I guess I would say, another aspect to that social part was, finding an empty classroom someplace to go study in. And those would be both, good study sessions, but also great social opportunities too, right? Where you're just kind of digging in with people and getting to know them. And I have some very fond memories of those sessions too.
So you've kind of described yourself as a joiner. So you did Residence Life. You were involved in the ASLC, now ASLU. Talk to me about anything that you're particularly proud of having accomplished during those experiences or any of the other experiences on campus.
I was fortunate enough, I think, to be part of several firsts. So as far as I know, probably the first openly gay person to run for and win a student body president at Linfield. So that was exciting and scary, to be honest. My parents were terrified for me, running in an election that was going to become an issue, and it wasn't at all. Like I don't even know that it got mentioned, to be honest, at least publicly. So that was a point of pride for me. I also had the opportunity to write a grant as part of ASLC that helped bring computers into ASLC. So when I joined, there was maybe 2 computers in the office, in the ASLC office, and I wrote a grant for us to get our own, for each cabinet officer to have their own computer, as well as buy a server where we stood up our own web page, put a computer in what was the Campus Information Center, where we coordinated all the activities and tried to do some electronic calendaring and those types of things. Got some printers, we didn't even have a printer in the office. So that grant funded buying all of that equipment. So I was proud of that because it was very much a transformative thing, how do we not have these things? But at the time, computers were extremely expensive. It was not a commodity type of thing you could just go buy, especially on a nonprofit budget. So it was very nice to be able to get those things and contribute that way. We also then funded a work study position for somebody to come in and sort of be the webmaster of the page and help evolve that. So it was also a way for me to give back to the computer science department and bring somebody to employ there. And so I definitely felt proud about those things.
What were your plans post-graduation and how did they manifest?
It's interesting. I knew that my plan was to go straight into the workforce. And I think, when I think back to it, it's somewhat scary that it wasn't much of a plan other than that, right? Go into the workforce. I didn't necessarily know what that looked like. In 2000, when I graduated, the economy was a little bit slow at the time. My peers were kind of struggling a little bit to find jobs, and some of them found jobs. I had some relatively good leads. My husband had moved back to Idaho, where he was from, left Linfield a little bit earlier than I did. And so I sort of knew one way or another that I wanted to be where he was going to be. And he was open at the time it was sort of going to either be Portland or Boise. And so I happened to be visiting him in Boise and over a weekend and saw a job fair in the newspaper. And so I decided, well, I'm going to change my flight, and stayed over and went to this job fair and met up with a company called Fast Enterprises and hit it off with them pretty good. And so went and just kept in touch with them. Didn't end up having a job when I graduated, but I moved. So graduation was on a Saturday probably. Moved and drove to Boise with a U-Haul truck full of stuff because I didn't have a job, so I was going to, move in with my husband and see what happened. And so I ended up meeting with the Fast Enterprises folks, met with the CEO over lunch. By Wednesday, I had a job offer, and I'm still employed at Fast Enterprises 23 and a half years later. It was a case of the right place, the right time with the right people. I was fortunate to be their 12th employee, so very, very small company. They had left their employers in a very startup, fashion, worked in the basement of a house that they rented, writing this software. They had implemented or were in the process of implementing it for British Columbia, and were just going to start their first U.S. project in Idaho. So I was part of the first group of people that they hired in the U.S. and really, grew with them from there. And because of my background, I think at Linfield and being so ready to tackle consulting, I progressed with them extremely quickly. And so I went from, being a programmer into being, within 4 or 5 weeks, being a team lead. Easy to do when there's 12 people. But then, growing with them over the course of time, and here I am.
So for the people watching at home, tell us a little bit about Fast Enterprises and kind of what your day-to-day is now, today.
Sure. So Fast Enterprises is a software company and consulting company. And so we make, install, and consult around our own software product, which is enterprise software that governments use to do several things, back-end type systems. So for example, we make tax systems. So our software processes the back end of taxation for governments of all shapes and sizes. Same thing with DMV. So your driver's license record, your car title, your license plate, car registration, all of those types of things. Unemployment insurance, so both companies paying into it and then also paying back out to people who need those benefits. And then child support as well. So managing and making sure that responsible parties are paying in, and then again that we're paying out to the appropriate people who need those benefits. So we do that for governments of all shapes and sizes, local, state, national governments. And in my particular role has evolved over the years, as you might imagine. So I very much started out as a developer, writing a lot of the initial programs. I focus specifically in the collections and audit area in the tax world. Spent about 10 to 12 years working in the tax world, and then kind of switched over to DMV. And I've been focused quite a lot there as well. I've moved around doing that work. So I've had the opportunity to move 13 times in my career. The projects we do are very long, very complex projects. So we would move somewhere for 2 or 3 years, do a project, then move on to the next thing.
Where's your favorite place to have lived?
I'm going to say Atlanta, although I love Colorado, but I live there now, so I consider it current. But yeah, I was 25 or something when I lived in Atlanta, and it was kind of our first time in what I would consider a big city, right? Where we were young and full of energy and happy to go out and have dinner and be out on the town and could walk to all the things. We were in a high-rise condo that was super close to one of the big parks there. So we just felt like we were living it up, as the case may be. So yeah, I had the opportunity to live abroad as part of my work. So I was responsible for a project in Trinidad and Tobago to replace the country's tax system. And that's probably...
Isn't your favorite?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I definitely have lifelong friends from Trinidad and Tobago. And in fact, last year even, we went back and did Carnival again with them. So that definitely was a favorite, and probably the work I'm most proud of. I mean, the transformation that we took them through was sort of next level, right? I mean, when we showed up, it was like they're literally correcting tax returns on paper with red pens and solar calculators. I mean, I could go on and on about the way that was, and taking them all the way towards, tax returns are scanned, the computers do OCR and read the handwriting, and everything is imaged, and then everything is like all the workflow is done on computer. So it was hugely transformational for them. I mean, They went from an average of 2 years to get an income tax refund to, at their best, about 2 weeks, which is huge, right? So that always feels good.
We've talked a little bit about how you've stayed pretty close to Linfield since you graduated. And I know that you talked at the beginning about how you felt like this was always a very friendly campus. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else about Linfield that made you want to stay involved post-graduation?
I think people are just so appreciative of the help that they get. Whether it's from the students volunteering for something or from alumni giving time, whether it's through committees or even just showing up for homecoming, people are very willing to participate, and I think people definitely appreciate that alumni give back. That there are a lot of people, even that don't serve on committees or boards or whatever, that are passionate about Linfield, who talk about it to prospective students or to their families or what have you, and it's just so impressive to me that there's that community out there that's so passionate about this place.
So what changes have you seen on campus since you graduated in 2000, and what do you hope for in the next 20, 25 years?
Yes, that's a great question. I have a very distinct memory when I was here as student body president, and we're sitting in the Nicholson library. So when I was here is when the acquisition of this property occurred, and it was a big deal. Signing those papers, and the memories I have of that are, as part of student government, but also students in general. They did some tours of the buildings that were still, having been vacated from HP, they were concrete shells. So a couple of memories there. One is, as part of student government, we used these buildings actually in shell form for some events. So we would have, indoor events when it was raining and such. We'd come over here and have some events in here. I think we did a rave in this building, actually. It was a big cement shell, right? So, it was a great place to flash a bunch of lights and be loud. We could be super loud and not disturb anyone on campus, because campus was a million miles away, it seemed like. So, we did stuff like that. I remember as part of one of the tours, they had a sound dampening room. And if you've ever seen one of those, it has like big foam cones in it on every surface possible. And so that was kind of a popular thing to do, to go in there and scream, but no echo whatsoever. It kind of plays with your mind. And then got to be involved in just a little bit of the early visioning for what might come over here. One of my very distinct memories I have is Dr. Bull, Vivian Bull, when they kind of had the ribbon cutting for the campus, was her climbing up on this backhoe, and there used to be a chain, like kind of where the between the softball field and soccer field is, or baseball, I guess it is. There was a chain right there, and the road ended, and it turned into a gravel road to then go on to the HP campus. Anyway, so she climbed up on this in her skirt. She always wore a skirt, and her little khaki jacket, climbed up under this backhoe and put a hard hat on, and drove that backhoe through the chain, just straight through it. And that was the start. And
We have a picture of that in the
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do. So I was there, and it was a great moment. And I remember thinking at the time about what all that meant for Linfield and how much possibility it represented into the future. And so it's kind of cool to be sitting here in the same building. And I've been in this library just 2 or 3 times, and I'm always just so impressed as to A, the size compared to what we had, and B, just such a nice place to be and for people to come and study, and just kind of, it's very, very cool to see. So
So moving forward in the next 20, 25 years, what are you hoping to see on campus? Or are you just kind of hoping to foster that spirit of passion and transformation like we've been talking about?
Yeah, so it's interesting because right now higher education is in a big challenge, not just for Linfield, but nationwide. So, I think it's very cool. I think that a lot of institutions, I shouldn't say a lot, there are several institutions that are going through changes, and some of them have had to fold. So, we're fortunate at Linfield to be in relatively good shape. Not that there aren't challenges, there absolutely are. So I think, my focus, at least at this particular moment, is making sure we can get through that as unscathed as possible while maintaining as much resource for students and faculty and the institution as possible. So short term, that's definitely the focus. I think there are so many opportunities for Linfield. And some of the decisions that we made as an institution a long time ago, for example, acquisition of all this property, are one way I think we're going to be able to hopefully leverage some of that to keep things growing and building. And the investment in the Portland campus, the new Portland campus, is also a huge, well-timed investment where we have a lot of opportunities to try to develop that and diversify revenue. We talk a lot about that. How can we diversify revenue? Even if it means a smaller number of students, hopefully in the short term, the diversified revenue streams we hope will, account for that, make up for it, and hopefully help us come out the other side. We're fortunate to have a good endowment. It's not the biggest endowment in private education, but it serves us well, and it provides flexibility. And so I think we see the need to keep that growing as much as possible, leveraging the economic power that the U.S. has, and we're fortunate to be in that circumstance as well. So I think one of the things we hear a lot, or I hear a lot, is the need for some additional modernized spaces, especially for students to study. And it strikes me as an adult coming back to Linfield now. I hope that that's something we're able to do, is create some more vibrant student spaces and additional spaces for collaboration, right? There was a huge, as part of the capital campaign, the Spark Wonder capital campaign, there was a massive investment made in the new science building, which is great. And I think it really just underscored the need for more collaborative spaces, right? As we toured the new building, this is great because the faculty can be here and we can collaborate with the students. And it's like that word was used so many times over and over again. And I feel like that sort of collaboration aspect is one where I hope that as we go forward in the future, that continues to set Linfield apart. That it's a place where you can come, you can collaborate with people, be seen as a peer, learn what it's like to be in the real world, and set yourself up for success in the future. So I think those types of investments are what need to continue to happen. I think the board's committed to that, or at least I see that the board is committed to that. But I think we also recognize at the same time that we have some work to do before we can move fully forward on that. So.
You mentioned at the start of our chat that you had wanted to be on the board since you were a student. What is it about being on the board that is so meaningful, or that you wanted so much as a student?
In my own way, as a student, I feel like I had a unique opportunity to help shape Linfield as much as I could, and to be able to continue that and be able to keep giving back as an adult and somebody who is passionate about this place. I think that's really what drove me towards wanting to achieve that goal. and just continuing to be impressed with all of the people that are here. Just like myself being, in my career since I graduated, there are so many people at Linfield who have also been at Linfield since they graduated. And I feel like that's extremely unique, even amongst higher education, right? The fact that those people make those choices and have such passion for this place tells me that continuing to invest my time in Linfield is worth it. And hopefully it's just a really great way to give back and make sure people keep having the opportunities that the Linfield creates for them, because it's really is a special thing. So like I said at the start, I'm exceedingly humbled to be to be on the board, and hopefully, I think all of us are. I think the board brings a really great balance of perspective and how to move the institution forward, but I think we all share the need and desire to want it to move forward, and yeah, I've been very impressed so far.
That is all. Those are all the questions that I had for you. Is there anything that I forgot to ask, or anything else you'd like to share?
Always a good question to end with. I feel like we've covered things pretty well. If I think of anything, I'll let you know. But I guess I would express my gratitude for the opportunity to participate in this very cool project. Yeah, it's nice that we're doing this and recording it, and I think there's so many opportunities in the past that were missed to have this type of information, and it's always cool to look back on it. So my hope is that this is useful in some way.
We will see you again in 20 years.
Okay, yes.
We'll see how things have gone. We'll see how your prognostications worked out.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I'll look forward to it, in which case I'll need the squishy chair.
Well, we appreciate your time today. Thank you for sitting down with us, and we will go ahead and let you off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.